think I was inspired to write this book starting back in fourth grade because I had just had this interest in psychology and the mind and the brain. I remember reading The Layman's Guide to Psychology in fourth grade when other kids were reading comics. And somehow I go through high school and I end up going to college for business, but I wasn't happy. I eventually made my way, however, to going back to school for my pre-med and medical school. I had a wife, I had 2 kids, and I was happy with that part of my life, but unfulfilled professionally. Fortunately, I made it through medical school, became a psychiatrist, found my way into neuropsychiatry, and it's kind of just been a passion of mine ever since. And all I do is work with patients, trying to help them with what's going on, trying to understand their minds. I always say I see their mind like it's in an MRI machine, and trying to figure out what works for them, what doesn't work for them. But all that work with them has led me to understand there is a better way to go through life. And I have to believe that this system with this book and the bucket list works very well. It fosters healing, growth, gratitude, purpose, meaning in a world that's already chaotic. And so now I just wanted to share that with people, and thus the book has come about. I think being a psychiatrist, you can't help but have your view of mental health shaped on a day in, day out basis. The greatest education I've had in learning about psychology, mental health, and the brain has come from my work with patients who trusted me enough to share their experiences with me in the hopes that I could help them untangle their situations. I learned more from the people I work with about the human condition than I ever learned in medical school or residency training. I learned not only what made people anxious or stressed, but how they became those emotions. 50,000 hours of deep, intimate, insightful conversations with thousands of patients can teach one a lot about life. What works, what doesn't, what limits us, what motivates us. It's been a humbling yet very enlightening journey. I think what I was searching for is I've always wondered what made me tick and what makes others tick as well. I knew my mind is where I truly live and that my brain was like the orchestra conductor for my mind. I actually struggled most in my neuroanatomy classes in medical school because neuroscience can be very complex. But I think that drove me to want to know more about the brain and how it functions. So I committed to reading 3, 4, 5 scientific articles a day on the brain and mental health. And till this day, this reading is pleasure reading for me. It's a passion. Some days I probably read 20 articles or abstracts. I not only learned more about how and why I tick the way I do, but helped me see how and why others tick the way they do. I think perhaps more than anyone, my father influenced my thinking and my approach towards life. My father was a hard-working, blue-collar man who was diagnosed with kidney cancer around 2001, and he retired from work at that time to deal with his illness, and he spent the next 17 years plus doing more with those years than most anyone else with greater means and health will ever do. Before he passed, we talked, and he told me how he wasn't scared and he had no real regrets in life. He was able to do more in those 17 years living on dialysis, yet still traveling, not making excuses. And this really impressed upon me how it is to live life and that we should be doing as much as we can while we're here. And that while we have the time to do it, many people still don't engage. They always wait for later in life. And this lesson has turned out to be true for me and others who I have seen in the ways they live. He once told me when I was looking for a house that not to put all my money into a house, that there's a lot of things to see and do in this world. And those words really stuck with me, and I think I really started applying it in a form that kind of resembles a bucket list approach in life. And I just think he was a man who, while he had no college education, had more common sense than anyone I ever met. I believe this was yet another influence and inspiration that came from my father. His life totally changed after he was diagnosed with kidney cancer. He retired from work and he began to think about what he wanted to do with his life. That was his intentionality. He and my stepmother at the time started traveling, going to different parts in this country, then going on multiple cruises, seeing the world, things he had never done. These were all new places for him and doing new things. This was novelty. And keep in mind, at this time, he had no kidneys. He was on dialysis, yet he still found a way to make it on board cruise ships and travel with a cabin packed with saline solutions and a portable dialysis unit. But he kept living, and that really, I think, extended his years of living with this kidney cancer, that made him feel more alive than ever in his life, ever than before those 17 years. And that novelty and intentionality, I think, was a key part of that. People sometimes think a bucket list is about exotic trips, thrill-seeking adventures, buying fancy toys. And for some people, maybe that's a part of it, but I've always understood it differently. And I've been using my own acronym for a while now, which is IPIG, kind of like iPod, but it's IPIG. It's really standing for intrinsic purpose, intention, and gratitude. Think of a bucket list as a living philosophy that should have meaning to the individual, to yourself. That's the intrinsic part. The items that go on a bucket list should be serving a purpose to you and have a meaning behind it. You make the list, you choose the goals, you decide when to do them. That's the intentionality of a bucket list. And the reflection is a fulfilling piece about those bucket list goals that you may have accomplished and achieved, and should be later thought about and pondered upon, which leads to gratitude. So there are these components that ultimately improve mental health and quality of life, but it has to be what's important to the individual. It's not about skydiving or going to all these fancy landmarks, okay? They can be a part of it, but it's really about intrinsic purpose that brings gratitude. I think this book is different because it wasn't just written to be read. It was really written to be lived. It didn't set out to write just another self-help book filled with motivational cliches or vague promises. It was really born out of these decades of sitting with people and listening to what people truly yearn for when the noise is stripped away. Things like purpose, peace, curiosity, gratitude, connection. But it's also deeply rooted in the science of those yearnings. And what I found is this: our brains don't just want to survive, they are really wired to keep growing. And one of the most powerful ways to activate that growth is through this intentional, novel, meaningful types of experiences. Bucket list is a mental approach to achieve this growth. My father's influence, my own reflections, and the journeys of so many patients are woven throughout. In a world that we live in right now, it's overwhelmed by stress, distraction, and anxiety. This book, I feel, offers something grounded and hopeful. It's a user-friendly way to reconnect with yourself, which is a counterbalance to today's world of stress and uncertainty. And it also seems to have this profound effect on the brain itself, and even has anti-aging effects as we get older. So I think it's a very unique book that gives a system to live a better life backed by brain science. A bucket list mindset really does change the brain. This book does contain neuroscience, which may be a foreign concept to many, and it can at times seem very complex, but I did my best to keep it in lay terms so people can learn about how their brains work as well, especially with bucket list. I discuss brain networks and chemistry and the ability to change your brain with novelty and intentions and different categories on that bucket list. And I have over 300 scientific citations that are included in this book, not specifically on bucket list research, but on neuroplastic findings on purpose, novelty, connection, goal setting. A bucket list creates this fun and meaningful delivery system for these concepts. It's a way that as we get older in life, we can keep that neuroplasticity continuing to keep our brains healthy and, again, in a way, have an anti-aging effect on us. I actually believe that the quality of one's life can be enhanced by how much someone reads and adapts from this book into their own lives. I've seen this in my father. I discovered these things for myself. I see it all the time with the patients I work with. Unfortunately, many people today either find it difficult to get the motivation or simply are not sure where to start. And I truly hope that readers will find both when they read this. And I would encourage people to keep reading this over and over from time to time. Read it slow if you have to in the beginning. Take your time. They will no doubt strengthen their mental process, but will always come up with new and fun and important goals to look forward to as you read this book over and over. So I think it's really a roadmap to a better life, and that's what I hope readers will take from this. Well, we are certainly living in a time of unprecedented global stress, constant noise, digital overload, division, and a lot of uncertainty about the future. And rates of anxiety, depression, and burnout are rising across all age groups, and I see it in my office every day. What people are longing for isn't just relief, it's a sense of meaning, direction, connection, and this book, I think, offers a science-backed, soul-driven solution. A way to rewire the brain through intentional, meaningful experiences. It helps readers step off autopilot and once again live with more clarity, purpose, renewed curiosity. It's not about escaping life, it's about re-engaging with it, actually. I want readers to be able to find a path essentially back to themselves. Intentional living, to me, I think ultimately comes down to what my father embraced, and he taught me to embrace it as well. And it's a popular saying that I've heard before, but he reminded me of it. And the saying essentially, make the most of your time while you're here, and don't fear dying, fear not living. I think that's what intentionality is all about.